מה טוב לי תורתך, כל היום היא שיחתי. 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 טוב לי תורת פיך, מאלפי זהב וכסף. טוב לי תורת פיך. בוא נלמד, בעזרת השם נלמד היום, בעזרת השם. We're gonna wait a little bit, בעזרת השם, to get some more people logged on. We have, I know, a couple hundred people already on TikTok, Ashrechem, Kechem. Tonight's going to be mostly dedicated to your questions. I'm going to give you a few little tidbits about the parasha, very short, much shorter than usual, and then we're going to go into questions because we need to get questions answered because we want something in return. What do we want in return? We want you guys to take on mitzvot, to take on good things, B'ezrat Hashem, just like we did in Hebrew with our Morenu v'Rabbeinu Rav Ephraim. So tonight's going to be dedicated to your questions, B'ezrat Hashem, and Kabbalot. And Kabbalot, B'ezrat Hashem. No, we're not allowing anybody to log on right now, especially not people that look and sound like terrorists. So let's try to focus on Am Yisrael right now, B'ezrat Hashem. טוב לי טובתך מאלפי זהב וכסף. טוב לי, טוב לי. טוב לי, טוב לי, טוב לי, טוב לי, טוב לי, טוב לי, תורת פיך מאלפי זהב וכסף. Okay, we're having a little technical difficulty. נולדתי יהודי, כן, נולדתי יהודי ברוך השם, נולדתי יהודי. נולדתי יהודי, השתבח שמו לעד, נולדתי יהודי. טוב לי, טוב לי, טוב לי. Here we go. Tovli. Here we go. Moshe, Baruch, Benny, Yaakov, Ashrechem. Make sure you share everywhere, B'ezrat Hashem. There we go. Thank you. There we go. A second. Almost there. And what am I saying here? There we go. Here we go. All right, B'ezrat Hashem. Here we go, בסדר. בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ישתבח שמו לעד, ישתבח שמו לעד. We have an opportunity to learn Torah together, B'ezrat Hashem. But tonight's shiur is going to be a little different than many of the shiurim that we have the questions and answers, because usually we spend about an hour talking about different parts of the Torah, and then we take questions. Tonight we're going to make it very, very short. I have a bunch of little stories I want to tell you. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll do it during the shiur while you guys ask questions. But tonight is going to be a special shiur where we're going to have questions and kabbalot. Questions and kabbalot, meaning that after I give you a little short tidbit about the parasha that we have to really think about, then we're going to take your questions. And what I want from you, the only thing I want from you, is to take something on, to take on another mitzvah, get stronger with Shabbat, get stronger with tzniut, modesty, get stronger with tzedakah, get stronger with learning Torah. Just tell me what you're going to get stronger on. Why? Because we need more merits. Tonight, we have a shiur Torah that Be'ezrat Hashem is going to be a big merit to all of the Jewish hostages that are now under the יימח שמם וזכרם, the Hamas control, including that young family, the mother and two little babies that the Hamas is lying about, telling us that they're killed. This is a very big deal. B'ezrat Hashem, we are looking to generate enough merits in tonight, enough holiness in tonight's shiur, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will simply have mercy on Am Yisrael, mercy on these hostages, and simply bring them back home before Shabbat, B'ezrat Hashem. But it all depends on you. It all depends on you. It all depends on all of you and what you take on. If you take on things seriously, then it's going to generate those merits. It's going to generate those angels. It's going to generate those good things that we need. And B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will listen to our prayers, will listen to our request, and B'ezrat Hashem bring all of them, not even left one behind, all of them back, B'ezrat Hashem. So tonight's shiur is especially for all of these hostages, and of course also for the refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahites that continue to watch our shiurim, to learn from them, to publicize them, to share them, to study them, and of course to support all the things that we do by donating on our website, be'ezrathashem.org, or on YouTube, or on Facebook, and in different ways that you could donate to the organization to help us continue doing everything that we do for free, Baruch Hashem. Now, that's really one of the things I wanted to talk about, Rabotai Karim. I want to talk about it because B'siyata Dishmaya, we sometimes when you learn Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you gifts. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't stop giving us gifts. Ishtabach shimo la'ad. And one of the things that Ba'alei Musar, the masters of Musar, were masters of, was to take a pasuk in the Torah, take a ma'amar Chazal, a short lesson from Chazal, and go over it, and leshanen oto, and go over it, and over it, and over it, and over it. And one of my favorite psukim in the entire Torah is in this parasha. And no, it's not the one that I mentioned to you last night and the night before, which is Yaakov Avinu saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Atzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav, save me from my brother, save me from Esav. No, it's not that one. That we already talked about. It's something else. Yaakov Avinu in this parasha, chapter 32 of the book of Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 32, in verse number 11, Yaakov Avinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Katonti mikol hachasadim mikol haemet, asher asita et avdecha, כי במקלי עברתי את הירדן הזה, ועתה הייתי לשתי מחנות. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת. What's קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת? I have been diminished by all of the kindness and all of the truth that you have done, your servant. For with my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Here Yaakov Avinu is telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the amount of kindness that you've given me is far beyond any of the good things that I've done in my life, whether it's praying, and he was the one that made the tefillah of Arvit, or it's the different chesed and the different Torah and all the wonderful things that Yaakov Avinu did. He's the forefather of Am Yisrael. Yet Yaakov Avinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Katonti mikol hachasadim mikol haemet. It's all of the things that I've done, they're nothing. They're nothing in comparison to all of the kindness that you've shown me, all of the truth that you've shown me. And the reality is, Rabotai Karim, when somebody really thinks about this pasuk and goes over it and over it and over it, they realize that this pasuk is not just for Yaakov Avinu. In fact, if it is for Yaakov Avinu, needless to say, it's for us. What do we do, Bichlal? What do we do? What do we do that's such a big deal that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us so much kindness? You have money to eat. Ishtabach shemo la'ad. Did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say somewhere in the world that He owes you something, that you have money to eat? You have food. You have food to eat. Not only money to eat, but you have food that you can buy, and actually the food tastes good. The food tastes good. You know, some people, they don't have food that tastes good because either they're so poor, or or they simply don't have a good chef in the house. The reality is sometimes people are willing to eat anything they can. The Shem Menachem, you see some homeless people, some poor people eating from the garbage. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu give you food to eat. Did you say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about the food that you ate today? Not only about your whole life, just today. Did you say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly? Was your gratitude for the food that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you, was your gratitude as good as the food? Was it as good as the food? And all the things that the food will do for you? And how this food that you got today is going to give you energy, it's going to give you nutrients, it's going to give you life. What about the air that you breathe? Did HaKadosh Baruch Hu sign anywhere and tell you, I owe you air? I owe you the oxygen? No, He didn't. But He still gave it to you. Did you thank Him for that? And the amount of gratitude that you gave Him today when you said, Modeh ani lefanecha, thank you Hashem for bringing back my neshama, was that really the correct price to pay for the air that He gave you to breathe? Was it right? No, it's not enough. No amount of gratitude is enough for the air that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. Needless to say, no amount of Torah that you can learn is enough for the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the Torah. No amount of tzedakah that you give is enough for the parnasah that Hashem gave you in order for you to be able to give tzedakah. People think that they're doing God a favor by donating some money. In reality, who gave you the money to donate in the first place? Did you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for your spouse that loves you dearly, that helps you, that's there for you? How much did you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for your spouse? That she loves you or that he loves you? How much? Did you thank Him enough? That's really the correct price for the amount of what you got in return? Was the gratitude, even if you did say thank you today, was it really enough? Like if somebody said thank you like you said thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, would you give them what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you? Such a spouse, such kids, you have healthy kids, beautiful kids, kids that are excited to see you even when nobody else is. Did you say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He gave you healthy living kids with all of their limbs, with feelings in their heart that are dedicated to you? Did you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for it? Rabotai Yekarim, Yaakov Avinu teaches us one of the foundations of the Torah, which is gratitude. So much so that Chazal teaches us someone that is not grateful to his fellow man will ultimately be a heretic, will ultimately be an apikoros, will ultimately be an enemy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? If you're not able to say thank you to your wife, to your husband, to your children, to your co-worker, to your boss, the person that pays your salary, to even a clerk in the store that's giving you your groceries, if you're not able to say thank you to your fellow, ultimately you will become a heretic against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu only gives you. With other people, you can say, listen, yeah, they did something good for me, but last week they did something bad. So you could kind of have an excuse, but the reality is no excuse. When it's good, you have to say thank you. Well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all He gives you is good. And you say, wait a minute, how is it good if last week I didn't have money? How is it good if 2 weeks ago I was sick? How is it good if a month ago somebody I know died? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything that He does is ultimately good, because when you look at the entire equation, which a human being cannot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu evaluates everything, the merits, the obligations of that neshama, of that person. What's the best thing for them? And sometimes the best thing for them is to leave this world. Sometimes the best thing for them is to be sick. Sometimes the best thing for them is to become rich. Sometimes the best thing for them is to get married. Sometimes the best thing for them is to have children. Sometimes it's the opposite, chas v'shalom. The point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at the entire equation, and He always picks what's best for you. It's just that we don't see the entire equation. Rabotai Yekarim, when a person sees all of the wonderful things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him, it's needless to say that what Yaakov Avinu applies to him applies to her. And if we're not able to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu endlessly, who are we going to say thank you to? Who are we going to say thank you to? This, Rabotai, is something extraordinary. And I'll say a little story to put things into perspective, because you guys are watching Torah wherever you are in the world. If you're in Israel like me, then it's right now the middle of the night, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. If you're in America, just simply count 7 hours back. If you're in other places, whatever your time is. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought you here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought you here in order to learn Torah. Now, the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought you here, out of all the places in the world that you can go, He brought you here. You can watch a bunch of junk on the internet. You could go and do a bunch of sins, but He brought you here so you can learn Divrei Elokim Chaim, words of the living God, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can learn Torah. That in itself is literally a gift of all gifts. But a person that doesn't know Torah literally is clueless. And I just heard 2 wonderful stories from my dear Rav. One is a story that I've heard from him years ago, but it's always good to hear it again. And number 2, the other one I was part of. So what does it mean to be ignorant? Ignorant of Torah. So there was once this woman, Moroccan woman, traditional, old-fashioned, didn't know much about Torah and mitzvot, to the extent where she was nothing like her grandparents. And I'm sorry, not the woman itself, but the nurse. The nurse was at the hospital, was clueless, and this Moroccan woman, actually, that was a traditional woman. She was connected to the Torah. She came. She was, about to give birth, and of course, anyone that's had kids knows that giving birth is not exactly fun and games. So this woman wasn't exactly having a good time. When her husband asked her, "Can I do anything?" she yelled at him, and he got so scared he ran away. And of course, as the birth pangs get worse and worse, she starts crying, and then she starts screaming out, "Baba Sali, help me! Baba Sali, help me!" Baba Sali, one of the great tzaddikim that lived among us just a few, maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I remember when I was a kid here in Israel, my parents, my grandparents used to always talk about him. We had pictures of him on the walls. And as soon as she said this, salvation came, and she gave birth. The nurse, that was clueless, thought that Baba Sali was the name of the father that ran away. So she went on the microphone, and she announced, "Baba Sali, you just had a baby boy. Baba Sali, you just had a baby boy." Now, as funny as that is, in reality, these things happen. What's the proof? It happened to us. Years ago, Baruch Hashem, when my wife and I, Baruch Hashem, got married and we had our Sheva Brachot. We came here to Eretz Yisrael, and we made reservations in this hotel, and we made a few people that were coming to celebrate with us at this hotel. We made reservations for their room, and of course, one of them is our dear Rav Ephraim. And as soon as Rav Ephraim comes, it was Friday afternoon. He gets to the clerk, and they tell him at the front desk, "We're sorry, there's no reservation for you. There's no reservation for you." He's like, "Oh, okay, no problem." So he sends me a text message. I'm upstairs, and he said, "Listen, I'm here, but apparently they didn't give me a reservation, so I'm just gonna go home. It's okay. Don't get upset." I'm like, "No, Mapitom, what are you talking about?" Immediately I ran down, told my father. That was the one that was in charge of a lot of these reservations. Hashem bless him. And we ran down to downstairs, and we said, "No, what are you talking about? This is it's one of the main guests. Of course, there's a reservation." And they said, "Look, this is the list of people that you have a reservation for. He's not here." And immediately, Rabbi Ephraim says, "Look, over there, Rab Mahmoud." I said, "Yeah, I don't know who that is." He goes, No, you don't understand. When they asked me about to have reservations and what food you eat and so on, I told them I just want to make sure that the kashrut that you have is kashrut Rav Mahmoud. But the ignorant person on the other side apparently doesn't know that there's a kashrut of Rav Mahpud, and they thought that my name is Rav Mahpud. So that's what they wrote, Rav Mahpud. Rav Mahpud is not coming here. And this is what happens, Rabotai Karim. This is what happens when you don't have Torah, you don't have any connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can be so ignorant that you could literally think that things that are common knowledge in the world of Judaism are, unfortunately, something that you have no concept of. So we have to think of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now, after we said this, got a little laugh, now I want you guys to think about some of the questions that you have that are really important. Whether it's about the parasha or it's about other things. I know that a lot of you send me questions throughout the week. I don't have a chance to answer everybody's questions. I try my best. But I want you to also take upon yourself things. So each time you're asking a question, I want each one of you to also commit to thinking something upon yourself, either to increase your Torah learning or increase your modesty or take on Shabbat or kashrut or whatever you're not doing. Commit right now to doing it. Not in a year from now, not in a month from now, but right away. Why? We need merits. Tonight, we're here to not only answer questions, but to also take kabbalot. What's kabbalot? Acceptances. People taking upon themselves more mitzvot. Whatever you're doing. Take your Kabbalah to not say Lashon Hara, not to waste your time going to these, what we talked about last week, these Genom parties, where people just chit-chat all day about other people. Don't do that anymore. Whatever it is that you know you're struggling with, take it on tonight. Take it on tonight. And even if you think it's tough, just so you know, Rabbi Chaim Volozhin says, before you take something upon yourself, something spiritually to connect yourself to Hashem, you have a difficulty saying, I can't do it. You're right. You can't do it at that moment. But the moment you take it upon yourself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you the power to do it. So even though you think you can't do it, the moment you commit to doing it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you the strength to do it. So Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers to answer all of your questions and also accept a lot of Kabbalot tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem. All right, let's see. We have some questions here. What is your feeling when you're killing kids? Well, I'm not killing any kids, Baruch Hashem. In fact, I am saving kids, many of them. Ishtabach Shemo La'ad. Whether it's saving HaKadosh Baruch Hu's children from going to Gehenom by, obviously not knowing what they're supposed to do in life and how to serve Him, or it's even when people call me in different hours, 24 hours a day, because they're struggling, because they have a pregnancy that they're not sure if they're able to take on. Why? Because they're not married. This was a result of promiscuity. And just literally a couple of weeks ago, there was a young woman that I spoke to in the past and haven't heard from in a long time. And she contacted me and telling me that she made a mistake and she is now pregnant and she wants to know what to do. And I spent, Baruch Hashem, a lot of time to help her understand that even though this is a result of a promiscuity, she has to know that this is still a Jewish child, and if she keeps it, she raises this child with Torah and mitzvot. Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless her, and Baruch Hashem, she kept it. And in fact, just a little over maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago almost, another woman with a similar story, not exactly the same, but similar story, called me and told me the same thing. And Baruch Hashem, after a bunch of back and forth messages and different clarifications, ultimately she decided to keep the baby. And Baruch Hashem, today this baby is already a couple years old, and she's still in touch, and she's keeping Shabbat, and she's keeping mitzvot, and Baruch Hashem, life is much better than she could ever imagine, because she has the gift that keeps on giving, which is children. So we're not killing any kids, quite the opposite. Now, if you're talking about the war against the terrorists in Gaza, it's a mitzvah to go to war against the terrorists. It's a mitzvah to destroy the terrorists, and if there is collateral damage as a result, then that is unfortunately the blood is on the hands of those that started the war, not those that are responding to the war. Those that are using human shields, not the ones that are trying to stay away from killing civilians. So if you look at who's trying to kill civilians, that's Hamas, that's the Palestinians. If you're looking at who is trying to save civilians, that's Israel, that's Am Yisrael, that's the Jewish people. And that's clear to anyone with eyes in their head. But when you have a war, there's going to be collateral damage. And as I've said in a complete lecture
just a few weeks ago, maybe probably about a month ago or so, when you are at war, you're not allowed to have any mercy. You're not allowed to have any mercy that is going to put you at risk, even though we don't target killing civilians, we don't target killing babies, but you're not allowed to have mercy because that mercy could ultimately cause much greater death down the road. And one of the best examples of it is when the leader of Hamas, and especially this particular Sinawar, Yimach Shimo V'zichro, the one that spearheaded this recent massacre, not too long ago, he had cancer in his lungs, and it was Jewish Israeli doctors that saved his life. Knowing that he's a terrorist, they still saved his life. And he even told them that he's going to go back to terrorism. He didn't lie about it. And this evil monster that the Jewish Israeli people saved ended up murdering thousands of our children, thousands of our daughters, thousands of our mothers and fathers, thousands of our people. So if you're talking about killing, the only people that are doing merciless killing are the Hamas terrorists and those that support them. So Baruch Hashem, we're not those people. We're the ones that are trying to save people, not kill people. If you believe otherwise, bring facts to support it, which unfortunately do not exist. Let's see, next question. Ma Perek Asur, what is the forbidden chapter? This is a missionary question coming from missionaries, people that are idol worshippers, that pretend to be Jews, that pretend to be lovers of God, but in reality it's Christians in disguise. And they have only a few arguments that they use over and over again because they're ignorant and they don't have a clue of right or left about the Torah. And one of the things that they say is, aside from the other two, which is the common one about Isaiah 53, Daniel 9, they ask the same question in different ways. And one of the ways they ask the question is, what is the forbidden chapter? There is no forbidden chapter in the Torah. You're allowed to learn everything. We learn everything. We teach everything. We have shiurim about everything. But they claim as if the Jewish people don't teach Isaiah 53, which is complete fabrication, lies. Only Christians think that. If you go to any learned Jew and you ask him this question, they'll laugh at you like, there is no such thing as the forbidden chapter. No such thing as a Perek Asur. That's a complete lie and a fabrication to make people that are ignorant of Judaism think that the rabbis are hiding something, because one of the primary strategies of the missionaries is to make people hate the rabbis, because that's what Jesus did. He hated the rabbis, and that's also the reason why the Gemara in Masechet Gitin says that Jesus is suffering in tzoar tachat, in boiling feces, because of how he went and caused a lot of harm to different rabbis in his generation, and until this day we're suffering from him. So if you're looking for truth, you're not going to find it in Christianity or what they call themselves Yehudi Meshichim or Messianic Jews. There's no such thing as Yehudi Meshichim. There's Judaism and that's it. Let's see. What questions we have? Let's see. Did you educate yourself? Baruch Hashem, I've educated myself both in secular knowledge and Torah knowledge. And if you had any concept of what I've done in my life, you wouldn't be asking this question. I've probably read more books in just the last few months than you probably read in your life. But unfortunately, you just like to ask questions because that's probably the extent of your vocabulary is just those few words. But whether you are asking questions about finance, science, geography or history or Torah, you'll get an answer. In fact, you get an answer probably about every question. And if you want proof of that, since I'm not going to spend my whole day answering heretics, you could simply look at the series that we have on our YouTube channel called Stump the Rabbi. Stump the Rabbi series has about almost 200 lectures in it. This is full of live questions from the crowd, unprepared. Each person asks a question, they get an answer with sources from the Torah, from different places across the spectrum of the Torah. This is all because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help. This is not because I have some special gift. Simply I dedicate my life to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps me. But every question has been answered. And even the people that have tried to stump and tried to intentionally fool us, Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu helped us with them. Now this series, every single lecture has anywhere from, I would say, as little as 10 questions to as many as 30, 40, 50 questions. So you do the math, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of questions. And right now my team has already been working on this for months and months. They've been cutting these questions into little segments, which we will, Be'ezrat Hashem, put on a special page on our website, and Be'ezrat Hashem also on our app, where people will be able to ask any question that they want, and they'll get not only a response, but a video response. We already have well over 1,000 videos cut, and Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us, give us the ability to put this out there so you guys could not only get the answers, but get an appropriate answer with sources and with clarification. So if you're asking whether I educated myself, instead of listening to what I'm saying right now, go and see the thousands of lectures that we've provided. Compare it to any speaker that you want in your idol worship or heretical religion that you come from, or wherever hole in the wall you come from. Go compare it to anyone else, and then you can decide whether I'm educated or not. I'm looking forward to hearing the grade. Do I support Israel? I live in America, but I'm in Israel right now because I am part of Am Yisrael, and I love Am Yisrael. And part of Am Yisrael is the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, which is the land of Israel. This is something that's in our Torah, Baruch Hashem. Is my shiur always in English? No, not always. I have a Hebrew channel. You can watch shurim over there. Most of my live shurim are in English, just simply because there's a much larger crowd in English. But over the last month or so, I've been doing live shurim in Hebrew with Rav Ephraim Kachlon, so you can watch him, and then usually I get in there at some point in the second half of the lecture. So if you want to hear some of the things we have to say, you could go to his channel, or you can go to my Hebrew channel, Arav Yaron Reuven, and you'll see Baruch Hashem does many shurim over there. God loves you. Thank you very much for letting me know, but the Torah also let me know, anyone that serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves him. That's why he loved Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu loved HaKadosh Baruch Hu and served him and did his mitzvot, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says about him, I love Avraham because he fulfills my mitzvot and he teaches it to his children. So, Baruch Hashem. האם אני מדבר עברית? כן, אני מדבר עברית, נולדתי בנתניה, חייתי פה עד גיל 10, ועכשיו ב-35 שנה האחרונות בארץ, אבל יש לי ערוץ בעברית, יש לי גם ערוץ בקוריאנית, ערוץ ברוסית, ערוץ בספרדית, ערוץ בצרפתית, פורטוגז, ברוך השם, 14 שפות יש לנו שיעורים. השתבח שמו לעד. בעזרת השם מנסים לעשות מה שמשה רבנו עשה, שתרגם את התורה ל-70 שפות, בסייעתא דשמיא. זה נוח לך ללמד תורה באנגלית. Is it comfortable for me to teach Torah in English? Certainly it's comfortable for me because I've been in America for most of my life. English has become my primary language for the last 35 years. But like I said, I have lectures that are translated to 14 different languages. So if you're looking for Torah, you could you could just simply type my name and you can get Torah in different languages. אני לא כל כך טובה באנגלית. המחילה שאת לא כל כך טובה באנגלית, אבל כמו שאמרתי, יש לי ערוץ בעברית, ואת יכולה לראות את השיעורים שלי שם, תלכי ליוטיוב, תכתבי הרב ירון ראובן, ויש שם מלא שיעורים, כולל הסיפור האישי שלי, שזה קוראים לזה, השם לקח בחזרה את המיליונים שלו, סיפור מרתק, סרט, ברוך השם, בדרגה גבוהה, יש עוד כמה וכמה שיעורים שם, חלק מהם מתורגמים לעברית, מאנגלית, וחלק מהם בעברית ממש. יש סרטון יפה מאוד שקוראים לזה עולם השקר. זה גם מומלץ מאוד, ויש שיעורים על פרשת שבוע וכו', אפשר לראות שם, וגם אפשר לראות את השיעורים של הרב אפרים כחלון, שזה הרב שלי, ויש לו ברוך השם אלפי שיעורים, בעברית. לא, אני מתכוון שאני... כן, בסדר, ברוך השם. בסדר. Let's see, okay. All right, okay, so guys, let's see, more questions, and also Kabbalot, who's taking upon themselves mitzvot right now? Who's taking upon themselves mitzvot? All right, this is related to the shiur from last week about the reasons most people are not happy, okay? Because they're not grateful for what they have. They always focus on what they don't have or what the neighbors have. Exactly, yeah, chazakah u'bucha, that's exactly it. When somebody does not look at and appreciate all of the gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them, certainly they're going to be miserable. They're guaranteed to be miserable, especially people that are jealous of other people. You're jealous of other people's bank account, you're jealous of other people's family, you're jealous of other people's looks. You are guaranteed to be miserable, even if you have more money, better looks, and all of the things that you're jealous of. Even if you have better, you're still going to be miserable. Why? Because if you're focusing on somebody else's stuff, you don't have time to recognize what you have. You don't have time to recognize what you have. So you could have the greatest blessing in the world, but you don't have time. This is also the reason why people that are either womanizers, adulterers, immoral, immodest, this is the reason why these types of people live very, very miserable life. And the reason why is because no matter how beautiful they are, or the person that loves them are, they're never going to be happy with it because they're always looking elsewhere. They're looking at a different woman, they're looking at somebody else's wife, somebody else's husband, and they're never going to be happy with what they have. This is the reason why in the celebrity world, being married is simply a joke. It's just taking dating and making it a little bit more official for a short period of time, because marriage does not last in Hollywood. Saying that there is when people say, oh yeah, they've been married for a long time, what they mean is 5 years. What they mean is 5 years. And generally speaking, this is one of the curses that is upon people that are promiscuous, that are immodest, that are immoral, and it's just something that comes with the territory. Meaning, if you are doing immoral things, looking at immoral things, that means that you're not satisfied with what you have. You're constantly looking for more. Either you're looking for more attention that other people are going to give you, or you're looking for, in so many words, for something else altogether. You're looking for something else altogether. You're not happy with what you have. So what ends up happening is that a person could have the most beautiful wife, but literally be disgusted by her. Why? Because his secretary smiled at him today. She could have the most wonderful husband, but she doesn't even want to look at him. Why? Because the mailman smiled at her and said, thank you, ma'am. So that's the problem. The problem is when people are not happy with what they have, they end up losing any form of happiness that they're supposed to get with what they have. And unfortunately, they only realize it when it's too late. This is the reason why most people, when they get old, their greatest regrets are not that they didn't work more and make more money, but rather the fact that they didn't spend more quality time with the people that love them, because they were chasing something else, and in many cases even someone else. Could you please teach us how to conquer laziness and wake up diligently to serve Hashem? Well, in so many words, if you want to be a kosher Jew, you have to follow what's called the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, and this is a Shulchan Aruch. It's divided up into approximately 15 different books that are small size like this, or you can get the bigger books. It's about four of them. But in the Shulchan Aruch, the first halakha, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim. Okay, first halakha, Shulchan Aruch. Baruch Hashem, today we did, I think it was something like 30 halachot, but B'siyata Dishmaya, we still remember what we learned some time ago, which is the first halakha in the Shulchan Aruch. Here we go. First halakha in Shulchan Aruch. Rabbi Yosef Karo says, יתגבר כארי, לעמוד בבוקר לעבודת בוראו שיהיה הוא מעורר, השחר. Meaning, he has to overcome like a lion and stand up in the morning to go serve his creator in the morning, early on. This is the first halakha in the Shulchan Aruch. If you are a lazy person, you're not going to wake up early in the morning. And in fact, he talks more about it later on, of how if a person is lazy, they cannot fulfill the Torah. Why? If they're lazy to wake up in the morning, they're going to be lazy to do mitzvot. And if they're lazy to do mitzvot, they're going to make sins instead. So if you want to go to Gehenom, stay lazy. Lazy people, go to Gehenom. Why? Because laziness leads to sin. If you want to have a chance of going to Gan Eden, get out of that laziness. Why? It will never bring you any good in your life. No one ever succeeded in life as a result of being lazy. No one. Laziness is in itself a sinful act because you are wasting time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you in this world as if you have all time in the world. Who promised you tomorrow? Who promised you next week? How do you know that the next mitzvah that you're supposed to make is not going to be the one that's supposed to bring you to Gan Eden? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu literally only gave you another week to live. If you don't make this mitzvah in the next week, that's it, you're out of this world. You're out of this world. Or, if you do make this mitzvah, he takes you out of this world, but he puts you in Gan Eden. But if you don't, you have to go to Gehenom for a week, for a month, for a year, for 10 years. Who can afford to be lazy? Who can afford to be lazy? How can you possibly even think, I'm just going to relax a little bit. Relax? From who? From what? What are you talking about? Adam le'amal yulad, says Job. Job, the prophet Job, Iyov in Hebrew. He says, Adam le'amal yulad, the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created you in this world, in this physical world, is to go and work hard. What work hard? Work in construction? Work in minefields? No! Work and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning you have to constantly look for different opportunities to do mitzvot. This is why when you surround yourself with tzaddikim, like Baruch Hashem we have been over these years, and especially in these last several months, you see how they live their life is very, very different than the people that are not. Why? The tzaddikim, the difference between the tzaddikim and everybody else is everyone else does whatever they need to do, and if it happens to be a mitzvah, good. They need to pray, fine, it's a mitzvah. They need to go work, good. If working is a mitzvah too, that's good too. The tzaddikim look at things differently. They look for a mitzvah. And then if the mitzvah also happens to be something that they need to do for other reasons, that's good too. It's the exact opposite. They don't look at things unless it's a mitzvah. I just heard from one of the tzaddikim that I know, he says, Baruch Hashem, I just bought my wife a gift because it's a mitzvah from a Torah to not only have shlom bayit, not only to buy her a gift, but the Shulchan Aruch says before the Chag, buy your wife a gift if you can afford even jewelry. It's a mitzvah. So I went and fulfilled the mitzvah. And it's not common among ours in all the years that we've been married. They never had the ability, the finances to do such a thing first time. And I don't know, maybe 20, 25 years of marriage. That at least first time in at least 10, 15 years. And he was able to buy her a small little piece of jewelry. And he's so happy. Why? It's a mitzvah that's so rare in his house. Now you're thinking, yeah, but I buy my wife jewelry all the time. But are you buying it because it's a mitzvah? Or are you buying it because you want your wife to show off? That's the difference. When you go to Shulchan Shabbat of tzaddikim, it's very different. Why? Tzaddik says here, take this. No, but I don't want. No, it's a mitzvah. Did you eat the fruit yet? No, it's a mitzvah. Well, you're going to miss out on the mitzvah? Who cares how it tastes? You like, don't like, it's a fruit. Have you eaten the fruit yet? No. Oh, this one is mezonot. Yeah, but I'm already... No, but it's a mitzvah. Here's another mitzvah. They have besamim, different good smells to smell. Why? It's another mitzvah. Why? Because you have to constantly do mitzvot. Ultimately, you have to get to 100 blessings per day. That's Halakha Shulchan Aruch. David HaMelech made this takana to save Am Yisrael from a plague at the time. He made the takana that you have to make 100 blessings per day. So when your whole life is looking to chase opportunities to do mitzvot, to do good deeds, to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no time to be lazy. There's no such thing as laziness. Why? Because you're too busy making mitzvot. Which means that the only people that are lazy are people that are living the opposite of what the Torah is, which is they're not looking for mitzvot. They're looking to do whatever they want, and if it happens to be a mitzvah, then that's good. That's not a life that's going to get you to heaven. That's a life that's going to be a very, 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 very miserable life. So get out of it before it's too late. You don't know if the next mitzvah is the mitzvah that you need in order to go to heaven, in order to get the reward that you want even in this world. When I discuss, easy question, do I speak Hebrew? Okay, next question. When I discuss Judaism with my extended family and tell them about mitzvot they need to keep, their response is that they are allowed since they are conservative or reform and I'm religious. What can I respond? You can respond what I've told you a few months ago when you asked the same question, that there's no such thing as conservative or reform according to the Torah. We have one Torah. We don't have 3 Torahs, 5 Torahs, 10 Torahs. We got one Torah in our history at Mount Sinai. As the first Mishnah in Masechet Avot, first Mishnah in Masechet Avot says, Moshe kibel Torah mi-Sinai, umesara le-Yoshua, Yoshua le-Nevi'im, Yoshua le-Zkenim, Uzkenim le-Nevi'im, Nevi'im le-Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. This is the Masoret. At Mount Sinai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu taught it to Yeshua ben Nun. Yeshua taught it to the elders. The elders taught it to the prophets. Prophets taught it to the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, the men of the Great Assembly. This is many generations here. Which means it's the same Torah for all of the generations until this day. Our Torah says in 12 places, starting with the first parashat Bereshit, which is the mitzvah of Shabbat. If you go to the book of Exodus, parashat Ki Tisa, you also hear about Shabbat. 12 times it hears in the Torah about Shabbat. And in parashat Ki Tisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, a Jew that observes Shabbat will get blessing. But mechalelea mot yumat, a Jew that desecrates Shabbat is bringing upon himself a heavenly death penalty. At the time of the Sanhedrin, you would get a actual death penalty. Meaning, if they said, no, but I'm conservative, that's why I drove on Shabbat. I'm reformed, that's why I drove on Shabbat. They're like, yeah, come on, kapara. Come over here so we can throw the rocks on you until you die. There's no such thing as reform. There's no such thing as conservative. There's one Torah. Our Torah that we got on Mount Sinai that makes us Jewish. In 12 places say that a Jew that violates Shabbat gets a death penalty. Today we don't kill people, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu still does. So, when they say, I'm conservative or reform, they're simply saying, I am ignorant of what the Torah actually says. I'm ignorant of anything that has to do with the Torah. So, instead of simply throwing their lives into the garbage, tell them, what part of the Torah allows you to be a Mechalel Shabbat? Forget about how you want to call yourself conservative, reform, call yourself Pikachu for all I care. What part of the Torah says you're allowed to desecrate Shabbat? He said, no, the part that I'm not religious. Okay, so where does it say in the Torah that if I'm not religious, then I'm allowed to violate the Torah? Where does it say that? In fact, it says the opposite. In Parashat Ki Tavo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you treat my Torah like it's happenstance, like it's not really important, I will punish you. Punishment upon punishment. 7 levels of punishment. So, no part of the Torah gives you permission to violate the Torah. So if you're saying that you are Jewish and in essence are connecting yourself to God, how are you doing that if you're violating His instructions called the Torah? Simple. Once you bring this to them, if they are seekers of the truth, at the very least they'll start studying what the truth actually says. If they're not, then it doesn't matter what you say, and you could simply just stop wasting your time. and just send them lectures. If they watch, they watch. They don't watch, they don't watch. You have to go and help as many people as possible. Don't focus on just specific people just because they happen to be your family. Focus on everybody. Share with everybody. And I can tell you this. When I first started giving lectures, I was invited to a home to give lectures to a group of people, and all wonderful people, really, really, really warm people. And after I gave them a few lectures and so on, I started, meeting some of the people, asking them, they're all part of the same kehillah, and I found out they all attend a conservative synagogue. And they said, listen, everything that you say, we don't do it at our synagogue. The rabbi says the opposite. He doesn't say, I'm like, what do you mean? He says you're allowed, drive on Shabbat. So drive on Shabbat? What are you talking about? Is this rabbi Jewish? He's like, yeah. I said, you know what? Bring him to the lecture. Bring him to the lecture. Even though it took months to finally convince this so-called rabbi to come to the lecture, he came to the lecture, and I think you probably still see it to this day. It's somewhere. I don't remember the name of the lecture, but he came, and I was surprised to see him. And actually, if I remember, the lecture was actually at his house. Yeah. It was at his house. But I was surprised that they told me that day it's going to be a different place at his house. So anyway, I came over there and we started learning. And of course, Baruch Hashem, everything that I said, here's the source for this. Point in the book. And the rabbi nods. Yeah. In the beginning, he tried to argue with me, but then he saw that everything I said has a source. And the rabbi nods. Like, yeah. And then another Lord, there's nods. About Shabbat, about Kashrut, about modesty, about this, about that. Ultimately, the rabbi says, yeah, listen, everything he says is true. When his so-called congregants heard this, they literally, some of them almost fell off the chair. I don't know if that part is on camera or not, but I remember it happening vividly. And he said, everything he says is true, everything is in the Torah. Listen to what he says. And Baruch Hashem, some of those people really transformed their life, became very, very decent people following the Torah. Unfortunately, some of them changed their ways and abandoned. Not everybody stuck it out, but certainly some people saved their eternity as a result of looking for the truth. Let's see, next question. הוא בשיחה אחרת, הוא לא בלייב, הוא פשוט מעביר לכם שיעור על הדרך. לא, זה לא נכון, בפועל אני כן לייב, אני פשוט מדבר באנגלית. ויש לי צופים גם בטיק טוק וגם בפייסבוק וגם באפליקציה, וברוך השם בכמה מקומות. אז עונה לכולם, השתבח שמו לעד. Okay, I hope this guy is not another Breslov crazy that thinks only they hold the truth and the rest is BS. No, I'm not a Breslover. I'm simply a Jew that follows the Torah, Baruch Hashem. And you can watch many of my shiurim online. There's approximately 5,000 or so lectures that we've done over the years across all spectrums of the Torah. And in fact, you'll actually even hear some teachings about Breslov. Some of the problems with it, and certainly some of the good things that they teach. And you'll learn about that too there. Let's see. Here we go. All right, let's see, question over here. Come on, Rabotai, let's take on Kabbalot. Let's take on some mitzvot. Who is here to take on some Kabbalot? Here we go. Oh, wow. Watching from Nigeria. Baruch Hashem. We actually have many friends in Nigeria. One of my friends told me there's about 100 synagogues just close by to where he lives in Nigeria. I couldn't believe it when I first heard it. This is probably a few years ago. Yeah. 3, 4, 5 years ago he told me about this. My second cousin married a gentleman whose mother converted to Judaism, but she does not observe Shabbat or kosher. Is she Jewish? Am I obligated to inform them if he's not? I do not know if she had an Orthodox conversion. I know they're members of a Reformed synagogue. If they're members of a Reformed synagogue, then certainly she did not convert through a Orthodox synagogue. It's a Orthodox Bedin. It's extremely rare for someone that went through an Orthodox conversion to ever even enter a Reformed synagogue or a conservative synagogue, simply because the fundamental teachings that they spend many, many years, in some cases less, but a lot of time learning in order to convert, are going to teach them that Reform and conservative are heresy. They're not Judaism. So for someone to go through that whole process of conversion, of Orthodox conversion, and then end up in a Reform shul, it's extremely rare. From my experience, it simply doesn't happen. It's either they leave everything, or they stay, Orthodox. They usually never go to Reform, because anyone that ever spent any reasonable amount of time at an Orthodox synagogue, if they ever mistakenly walk into a Reform synagogue, they simply think the whole thing is a joke. I even had one woman that does not really keep Shabbat or mitzvot, but she's trying to do tshuva. She told me, listen, the only places that are next to me are Reform, and I tried going there a couple of times, but I think the place is a joke, because even though I don't keep Shabbat, I've attended Orthodox shuls many times in my life, and I know what prayer is, I know what keeping the mitzvot are. Just, she didn't do it. But when I go to the Reform place, there's a woman rabbi, they're playing music on Shabbat, making all types of prohibitions from the Torah. There's a woman that's a chazan. There's the men and women are sitting together. It's horrible, worse than a church. So at least at a church, there's some level of modesty and morality there and respect. But the point is that anyone that's ever attended Orthodox synagogue knows that what's the truth and what's falsehood. Whether they follow it or not is a different story. But for someone to be at a Reform shul means that, as a convert, that means that they didn't convert. They converted Reform, which is simply just paying a few dollars, getting a little certificate, like a high school diploma that you can simply print out even without going to high school, and putting it on the board. Which means that their children are not Jewish. If this woman converted in a Reform, that means that she's not Jewish, which means that our children are not Jewish, which means that your second cousin married a non-Jew and is now in a very, very serious problem called intermarriage, which if he does not do tshuva for, which would mean he has to get a divorce, or his wife has to convert immediately to Orthodox Judaism. They have to keep everything. If they don't do that, they're both going to get a Gehenom and simply regret every single minute they ever knew each other. Let's just say that. And if you want more details of what that means, you can simply watch my film called Gehenom. Over there's 176 sources from different spectrums of the Torah, including Chassidut, Zohar Kadosh, Gemara, Tanakh, Shulchan Aruch, different poskim, different Rishonim and Achronim, 176 sources that discuss Gehenom, what happens over there, and unfortunately, your cousin, or second cousin I should say, and his dear wife are destined to go over there for a very, very, very long time unless they do tshuva, and it's all going to be on the head of this mother that had a fake conversion. In fact, part of that movie is also going to talk about what happens to her and what he is going to do to her in Gehenom. So he's going to be one of the people that punishes her. It's probably going to be part of his job. It's a horrible scene. Let's just say that. Let's see, what else? I'm taking on mitzvot of doing more to giving kavod to my mother, care for her health, and another half hour of Gemara Bezrat Hashem. Ashrecha Baruch. Ashrecha v'ashrecha ikecha, Kadosh Baruch Hu bless you with bracha, atzlacha, chaim arukim, shlemim, meleim Torah, mitzvot, gmilut chasadim. You have a lot of atzlacha, B'ezrat Hashem, in your learning of Torah, in your mitzvah of kibud avaim, and B'ezrat Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu will bless you 1,000-fold for all of what you've done and what you're doing now. Ashrecha. Yaakov is saying, who are the angels that Hashem sent to protect Yaakov Avinu from Lavan and his brother Esav? This is what I talked about in the last 2 lectures. The last 2 shiurim I discussed this. There were a couple of angels that were part of the mission to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And when they were asked, what are you doing? They said, we are going to destroy Sodom. Now, even though they were saying this in the name of God, still this was a misspeaking. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished them by cutting off their wings. And then we are introduced to them again at the beginning of last week's parasha, where Yaakov Avinu sees angels going up a ladder and then going down. This is again the same angels that tried to go up to heaven but didn't have wings, so they tried to go up the ladder, but they couldn't because they were rejected. Hashem said that they're part of their punishment, that they have to stay in this world and serve Yaakov Avinu. And that's what they became. They became the servants of Yaakov Avinu, which in this week's parashat Vayishlach, Yaakov Avinu sends angels to go and see Esav. And Rashi HaKadosh says it's angels, malachim mamash. All right. Kvod Rab, I terminated a relationship with someone because she wasn't moving forward with her conversion process at the same pace as me. Was what I did a mistake? I don't know enough about you. I don't know enough about what she was. If you're a Jew and she's a non-Jew, or if you're a Jew and he's a non-Jew, I don't know if you're male or female. I don't know about the names. Can't see them. But if you're Jewish and they're not, then certainly you made the right move to get rid of the relationship, because you cannot afford a single second to be in an intermarriage situation. Now, if you're both not Jewish and you both were on the path of conversion, but she was slower than you are, it all depends on what you mean, what you're defining as slow, and how serious the relationship was. If she was generally a decent person that really wanted to convert, she just wasn't able or capable to study as much as you are and to do as much as you are, it's not necessarily the right thing to do to just throw them out, because generally speaking, no 2 people are alike. No 2 husband and wife are alike, especially in their spiritual endeavors. So many men think that they're doing much more than their wives, especially during the tshuva process, because they study a lot more, but they don't realize that studying is not exactly the top priority for a woman. The top priority for a woman is to be modest, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu by encouraging our husband and kids to study Torah and to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the main thing. Certainly she needs to study and to know the laws of Shabbat and the holidays and modesty and so on, but she doesn't need to study even half as much or even 10% as much as our husband. She just needs to follow the law. If she simply follows the law without even studying, that's still fine. It's good for her to study because that's going to keep her in. But the point is that when a guy thinks that he's doing more than his wife because he's studying more, he's mistaken. She's not supposed to be like you. If she was like you, then we would question you. We would question you. How come she's doing as much as you? Why is the woman studying as much as you? And sometimes I see where the women are studying more than the husbands. In Shamayim, they're going to punish the husband. They're going to punish the husband and say, shame on you. Your wife is studying more Torah than you? Embarrassment. You should be ashamed of yourself. You get punishment for it. In fact, some people get to a point where they let the wives read to them constantly. So much so that the Yalkut Yosef in the Alachot of Purim says that there is a special curse that comes upon men. Special curse from heaven. This is literally one of the worst possible things that can happen to a man. Why? Where he gets so comfortable with his wife reading to him that he says, listen, you read the books and I'll listen all the time. Even though he can't read himself. No, I'll listen to you. You know what? You also know how to read. Why don't you read the Megillah? I'll listen to you. The Chachamim say, at that moment, that man gets a special curse from heaven A curse unlike any other curse. Why? You're giving your wife your responsibility. Instead of being the one that teaches the family Torah, you've become the student. Hashem Yerachem, what happens to such a person? Now again, it's not a problem if, as part of a family time, whether you're newly married or married for many, many years, you guys read to each other, and you take a little section, and she takes a little section, back and forth, no problem. No, but if she becomes like the Mara De'atra of the family, she becomes the rabbi of the family, you can be sure that house will not have shalom, that house will not have blessing, that house will not have real Torah, that house will have curses, they'll have problems. Why? It's not supposed to be that way. There's no problem with the woman being scholarly and smart and so on, but if she's doing, needless to say, he needs to do more. Unfortunately, I've said some of these things in the past with a live crowd, where there was women in the audience that I knew myself, that they chose to give their husband the babysitting job so they could come to my lecture. And what I was saying is, I was hoping they would get the message that they made a mistake. Hoping that the following week, their husbands would come to the lecture and they would stay at home with the babies. But no, unfortunately, many times, women didn't get the message. The husband stayed home with the babies and she came to the lecture. And always, anytime I would ask them, what about your husband? Like, yeah, he's tired. Yeah, he's tired, but he's not going to sleep. He's watching TV. He's playing on the internet. Your job is to make him here. And you there. It's like, yeah, but what about the kids? You go babysit. Yeah, but I want to watch Shiur Torah. Watch it on the internet. Why? It's more important that he comes? Yes, more important that he comes. Why? He is obligated to come here. He's obligated to come here. If you could both come here, good. Get a babysitter for both all the kids. Both of you come. But if only one of you can come, he has to come. And unfortunately, some women don't get this. And what ends up happening is that you see these marriages are always problematic. There's less and less connection between the husband and the wife. There's a very, very big ideological difference, and it becomes problematic. I know several of my students that I help them with these situations. It's not a simple situation. It's not a simple situation because the women sometimes don't understand that the fact that they can easily watch 5 hours of a Shiur Torah and their husband could barely watch 5 minutes, it's not because she's that much more righteous than him. It's because he has a much bigger Yetzer Hara. He has a much bigger evil inclination to watch Shiur Torah, to learn Torah than she does. Why? Because he is obligated. She's not. She's not. So she doesn't have as much of a Yetzer Hara. She can watch Shiur Torah for 5 hours. I know some women, literally, they watch 5-10 hours of Shiur Torah every day. I said, if you're a woman, I'll be your student. I'll be your student. But that's the problem. That's the problem. Many times women don't realize that their primary job is to push their husbands. It's certainly important for them to also learn, but if your learning has turned into the main learning of the family, you are partly at fault. You are partly at fault. Of course, partly at fault of your husband too, but you are partly at fault. Why? Because you haven't succeeded at your job. Now don't come and say, I tried, it didn't work. Try again. Try again. When you wanted the new house, when you wanted the new refrigerator, when you wanted the new car, when you wanted the new piece of jewelry, and your husband wasn't exactly excited about spending all that money, what'd you do? 9 out of 10 times, you asked again, you cried, you complained, you whined, you did all types of things to entice him, Amevin Yavin, and ultimately what happened? You got it. So how come when it got to the refrigerator and the car and the house and the jewelry and all the other things that you wanted, you somehow found a way to get him to do it, but Shiur Torah you can't? You know why? Because you didn't try as hard. Apparently a piece of jewelry is more important to you than your husband going to heaven. So it's important for a person to know each one of us has a role in the world. And if the roles are switched, it's a problem. It's a problem and you have to fix it. Your job as a woman is to get your husband and kids to learn Torah. Of course, you also need to learn Torah, but nowhere near as much. If your Torah is coming at the expense of your husband or kids, then you are not doing the right thing. You have to make sure they are learning Torah. They're learning Torah. That's the priority. What do you think of Yigal Amir, who assassinated the ex-Israeli Prime Minister Rabin? What do I think? I don't think about him. I know that there's a lot of conspiracy behind the whole thing of whether he actually really did it or not, and all types of other things. There's a whole investigation that shows that there was really multiple bullet holes, and in fact, when Rabin left the scene, he was still alive. And some people that I know, even that are very, very close to the matter, said that the extra bullets were on the other side of the body, and they weren't there at the crime scene. They happened after. So, certainly, this is not something that the government wants you to know about and all that other stuff. But quite frankly, if Hakadosh Baruch Hu allowed Rabin to die in such an awful way, that's because he also killed people mercilessly, which he did. If you saw my shiur from years ago, where I said the story of the ship, what is it called? Anatella, I think it's called, something like that. Starts with an A. It was a ship that full of Jewish people that came, but they were the political enemies of Ben Gurion, and he decided to shoot it down. And the guy behind the machine gun that was shooting it down, the cannon actually that was shooting it down, was Yitzhak Rabin. And he called it a holy cannon. That's what Ben Gurion called it. The cannon that murdered Jews that wanted to enter the land of Israel was called a holy cannon by who? By the Prime Minister of Israel, Imach Shemo v'Zichro, is Ben Gurion. And behind the scenes, the one that was actually shooting the cannon was a Rabin. So, just like Hillel says in the Mishnah in Masechet Avot, when Hillel sees a skull floating in the water, he says, you are floating in the water because somebody murdered you. But somebody murdered you because you murdered them and you did the same things to them. And what they did to you is also going to happen to them. Meaning, there's no such thing as a suffering without sin. No such thing. Everything that happens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world with measure for measure. You put Rashi Tefillin in the morning. If you put Rabbeinu Tam later on in the day, do you say a bracha for Rabbeinu Tam? No. Shulchan Aruch says in the Orach Chaim, I believe it's a Siman maybe 30 or so, talks about Rabbeinu Tam, talks about Rashi and so on, and so many words. The psak in the Shulchan Aruch is there's no blessing on Rabbeinu Tam. Doesn't matter what time you do it. No bracha on Rabbeinu Tam. It's if you make a bracha on Rabbeinu Tam, it's a bracha levatala, saying Hashem's name in vain. How can I gain merit to do kiruv? Do it. Do it. How can you gain merit? By not being selective of who you do kiruv with. Meaning, if your primary focus is only to do kiruv with people that are close to you, like family members, friends, and people that you care about, you have some type of association with, then it's harder to get merit, and it's also harder to get success. When you do kiruv, you have to go wherever you can, meaning help whoever you can, whether it's in the synagogue that you know or the synagogue you don't know, the Jews you know, the Jews you don't know. You share on the internet. You support it. You have to invest into it. Invest a lot of time, a lot of money, as much as you possibly can. At the very least, put 10% of the income that you get to investing into kiruv. Some people have the ability to invest in kiruv money, but they like their money so much, they don't want to give their money. They say, I'll give my time instead. Now, you can give your time instead, because your time is also worth money, but to gain merit, and in order to succeed in kiruv, you have to make kiruv something of a top priority, meaning that you have to invest everything that you have. Not every penny you have, but everything, every tool that Hashem gives you, use it. If Hashem gives you the ability to speak, use it. Hashem gives you money, use it. Hashem gives you talent, use it. Hashem gives you connections, use it. Whatever talent HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you, use it in order to publicize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. This is a one of the mitzvot in the Torah, in fact, where kabed Hashem be'onicha, that you have to honor Hashem with whatever gift He gives you, your most prized possession. So if you are investing a lot of time into it, that's good. If you're investing a lot of resources into it, that's also good. But if all the time and all the resources are only going towards people that are very close to you, and you don't spend time on people that are not, then that you can fix. But the point is that you have to make sure that it's mesirut nefesh, meaning self-sacrifice. Push yourself above and beyond. Above and beyond. The more you do, and more Hashem sees that you're really doing it for the right reason, the more He's going to give you the merit to actually succeed in it. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Is Mashiach here? Mashiach has not been unveiled to us. Whether the Nitzotz of Mashiach is here, he's in every generation. There's a spark of Mashiach. But as far as Hashem actually choosing him and unveiling him to the world, that hasn't happened yet since the creation of the world. How can we appear before a Beit Din before having our Brit Milah? So what you need to do is you need to move to a Jewish community, Orthodox Jewish community that has a Orthodox synagogue there. Schedule a meeting with the rabbi over there to become part of the community, part of the Kehillah. Start attending the lectures. And tell them that you want to be sponsored for conversion. Some rabbis don't deal with it, and they'll refer you to somebody else. Some rabbis do deal with it, and after they guide you what to learn, what to do, what life changes you need to make, and so on, ultimately they'll eventually sponsor you to go and to the Beit Din. To just show up at a Beit Din by yourself and say, hello, I want to convert, doesn't usually work. It's usually frowned upon. It's also frowned upon when people do Brit Milah on their own. Many times the Beit Dins refuse to convert someone that did a Brit Milah on their own. It's heavily frowned upon because it shows that you are a wayward person. You don't want to listen to the rabbi's instructions. You want to make your own path. So it's certainly a bad idea. Either way, if you go and join a Orthodox Jewish community, you speak to the rabbi there, you learn whatever you need to learn without any specific target time. It could take a year, it could take several years. It all depends on the rabbi's program and how serious and committed you are to following it. And then eventually they'll take you to the Beit Din. The Beit Din will probably meet with you multiple times. And if you are prove yourself as a candidate that is, that's worthy of actually converting and certainly a benefit to the nation of Israel, then you'll convert. But the problem is that many people think that, the Jewish people need converts or they need you. So it's like almost like you're doing them a favor. Like somebody told me, listen, Rabbi, if you bail me out of jail, I promise I'll convert. Like, why is that a favor to me? I literally got this message from somebody. I got this message from somebody who told me, listen, Rabbi, if you bail me out of jail, I promise I'll convert. Like people think that they're doing Am Yisrael a favor by converting. You're not doing anybody a favor. You're doing yourself a favor if you actually make it. So a person needs to have the right perspective. I, Baruch Hashem, have helped many people convert over the years from different walks of life, but generally speaking, it's not a easy thing to do because people they start off very excited, very idealistic, and to get them to normalcy is a process. And unless you get on the same page, many times it doesn't succeed. And it's not because of the rabbis like many people think. It's quite the opposite. So I have many lectures about this topic. You can go to my YouTube page. or my website, be'ezathashem.org. Type the word conversion, converts, and you'll see many lectures about the topic and learn about it. You could also email us and ask for the syllabus. Syllabus gives you a list of things you'll need to know in order to eventually be, sponsored for conversion by some rabbi that is going to sponsor you, and at the Bedin, and also has pictures on it. If you click on them, it takes you to different places, which books to buy, what things to learn, and so on. And the syllabus is free, so you could just get it if you want. Let's see. How can you move to a Jewish community and be amongst the, simple. Just look up, I don't know where you live. If you live in America, there are quite a few different places that have Jewish communities around America, but it may not necessarily be in your state or city. So you have to look, go on the internet, type in Orthodox Judaism or Orthodox Jewish communities, and you'll see the biggest ones are in New York, Los Angeles. There is in Florida. There is in Baltimore. There's several places where there is a significant Jewish communities there. I would say if you're close to New York or you can move to New York, that's usually the easiest option for most people because it has the most variety. Even, there's different types of communities. You may not mesh with one, but mesh with another one, and you don't have to move each time because they're next to each other. You go to New York, Brooklyn, Queens, New York, or Muncie is it's a very serious community over there. Point is that there's quite a few Jewish communities, small and bigger ones, in America. If you live in Israel, pretty much, Baruch Hashem, there's many Jewish communities in Israel. But if you live in other countries, then you simply have to find an Orthodox Jewish community wherever you live. If you don't have one, if you live, let's say, in countries that don't have a Jewish community, like Pakistan or places like that, then the only way for you to convert is you have to leave the country. You have to move to a country that has Judaism in it. Without it, there's no way that you convert. Again, you're asking me if I know Hebrew. Ken, אני יודע עברית. Let's see. And what is the name of the Holy Land in your book before Yaakov's sons entered the land, even Avraham? Now, obviously, this is a rhetorical question from a terrorist. So, I'll entertain you just to simply show you that we obviously have the answer, but the problem is that you're looking at the wrong place. Meaning, you're thinking that just because there's a certain name, therefore there is you arrive at some convoluted question. The name of the land that Hashem calls it is Canaan, not because it's he decided this is the name of Canaan, but rather because the Canaanites conquered the land that was originally given to Avraham. Now, as far as the land itself, this is named after Yaakov Avinu, who was named Israel. Now, it's never called, in the entire Torah, it's never called Palestine. In fact, it's never called Palestine until you get to the Roman Empire, which is well over 1,500 years after we got the Torah. The Roman Empire was the one that, as a insult and to the Jewish people, they called the land Palestine. Palestine is not mentioned a single time in the Torah. Now, like I said, I already knew where your question is coming from. Your question is coming from an ideology of terrorists that manipulate the public with misinformation. So I'm sorry for you that you have been lied to your whole life, but what can we do? Let's see. Oh, here we go. A bunch of questions. Okay, I see a bunch of questions, but very few kabbalot. Only Baruch has taken upon himself something. Let's go. Let's take out some kabbalot. Which are the reasons that a couple get divorced according to the Torah? Well, if the man doesn't want to live with the wife anymore, and he has a valid reason, either she's not modest or she's doing things that are forbidden, adultery, immorality, things of that nature, or the husband is not, willing to be with her intimately, or she's not willing to go to the mikveh, different things like that are causes for a divorce. How does a woman stay away from wasting time during the day? Should she listen to shurim all day, even though she doesn't take notes of all of them? Well, if I'm not really sure why she's wasting time all day. We spoke about laziness earlier today. You should go back and listen to that segment. If she's not working and she's not raising children, then certainly she should listen to Shulei Torah, pray, read Tehillim, and don't think for a second that she could just simply waste time and not get punished for it. She'll be punished for every second she wastes. Does the blessing for 20% tzedakah apply to Noahides as well? There's no limitation, according to my knowledge, as far as the tzedakah of 10 or 20% just the Jews. This is something that, to my knowledge, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "B'chanuni bezeh," test me with this. He doesn't specify just for the Jewish people. So certainly there is blessings for people that use the money that Hashem gives them to publicize His name and His Torah. Thank you for the blessings. In your opinion, should Sephardi Jews give their children Yiddish names like Herschel and Golda, even though it was not custom historically? There's a pasuk says, "Shma beni musar avicha, v'al titor Torah imecha," meaning you have to listen to the musar of your father and don't leave the traditions of your mother, meaning that we are supposed to follow our traditions. A Jew is not allowed to simply abandon his traditions. If he grew up as Ashkenazi, he has to follow the Ashkenazi customs. If he grew up as a Sephardi, he has to follow the Sephardi customs. To call a Sephardic boy Herschel is not necessarily a sin, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. But if you want, you can. People name their kids all types of strange things. Not really sure why they want to punish their kids like that, but people are a little bit selfish. Is being sick considered a sign of kaparot, or is it viewed as a punishment from Hashem, and how to overcome it? It depends why a person is sick and how sick they are. If it's just simply a common cold, then that's part of life. But if it's a sickness like pain, agony, things of that nature, then certainly it's a kapara. For sure it's a kapara. But it could also be more than just a kapara. It could be a test for the person to see if he still serves Hashem or she still serves Hashem. It could be a punishment for something that they did in the previous life and a way to fix it in this world, meaning they sinned with their hand in their previous life or even during their life, and now Hashem has given them pain in their hand or other body parts. Certainly it's always a kapara, because a kapara is in essence using suffering that you have in this life, whatever form of suffering a person has, whether it's loss of money, health, any other type of suffering is always a kapara. That means that Hashem takes that suffering, and instead of punishing a person for a sin that they've made, he uses this suffering instead. So it's always a kapara, and it's certainly worth it for a person to receive his kaparot in this world, rather than getting actual punishment for his sins in the next world, because the punishments in the next world are much, much worse than anyone can possibly imagine. So now, what is a person ultimately supposed to do when he is suffering, regardless of whether it's suffering monetary issues, marriage issues, health issues, and so on? Ultimately, a person needs to follow what the Gemara says, that whether a person is healthy or sick, rich or poor, married or single, he has to use his time to learn Torah. What if he doesn't feel well? Learn Torah. Meaning that a person always has to know that he still has an obligation, regardless of where he stands. He has to dedicate as much as he possibly can to learn. If he could only learn for 5, 10, 20 minutes because he's so sick, then that 5 or 10, 20 minutes may very well be worth like a 5 or 10 hours for someone that's not sick. But point is to never abandon Hashem, never abandon the Torah, because ultimately your goal is to accept the suffering with happiness, knowing that this suffering that you have is for your benefit, because the other option that Hashem had to give you suffering was much, much worse. It was either, let's say for example, somebody took something that doesn't belong to them. Somebody said something that they're not allowed to say. Somebody worshipped a foreign god. Somebody committed adultery. Somebody did any type of big sin from the Torah. And Hashem says, listen, I could either give you suffering for 5, 6, 7, 10 years of, let's say, having pain in your legs, or pain in your teeth, or pain in your arms, or whatever you decide, or poverty, or whatever it is, in this world, or I can give you 10 years in Gehenna, in Kaf HaKela, which this is a place where it's not subject to time. So 10 years over there is not the same thing as 10 years over here. And the suffering over there is infinitely worse than the suffering over here. So the neshama itself, before it comes to the world, when a person has to be reincarnated and to fix part of their sins, asks for the suffering here. Asks for the suffering to come here. And if a person does tshuva during their life, that's the greatest thing they could possibly do for themselves, because now they're already fixing part of their sins during their life. And in fact, the Gemara says in Masechet Brachot that one of the signs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you is when He brings you suffering. Et Hashem yoav, Hashem yochiach. Those that Hashem loves, He rebukes them, meaning He brings upon them suffering. And this is also very common among people that do tshuva, people that are in the process of converting, people that abandon big sins. Hashem brings upon them suffering, not because He hates them, not because He's punishing them, but rather because He's helping them complete their tikkun. Now that they're on the right path and they're going in the right direction, they still have to pay for this bill of their past idol worship, or past immorality, or past whatever sin they made. So Hashem says, listen, you're going on the right path to eventually get a good judgment, but there's still a bill that has to be paid. How can you fix it? Depends on the size of the bill. And Hashem says, if He really loves a person, He gives them the ability to fix it here. And instead of suffering 1,000 years in Gehenna, or in Kaf HaKela, or in Chibut HaKever, or the other horrible places that are designated for sins, and the punishment for them, in order for Hashem to clean the neshama of the filth that sins create, because He loves a person, He gives them suffering in this world. And ultimately, the mission of a person is to know this, acknowledge this, and accept the suffering with a smile, thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for it. And that's what the Gemara says. A person needs to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu for good and for bad the same way. Why? Because there's no such thing as bad. If He's giving it to you, it's for your benefit. It's for your benefit. So that's how a person needs to get to. Now, of course, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of Torah, to get to a point of accepting suffering with kindness. At the very least, a person should not be heretical-minded and ungrateful to Hashem, and needless to say, question Hashem of why He's giving him suffering. If He's giving it to you, certainly it's for your benefit. It's not for His benefit. He doesn't benefit from you. Can my husband attend a company holiday party? Kosher food will be provided. I don't know if they will have mixed dancing there. If you don't know if there's going to be mixed dancing there, then he cannot go. He cannot take such a risk. How can I become a Baal Tshuva? Can you explain about a Baal Tshuva? Certainly. If a person is Jewish and they're not keeping Torah and mitzvot, the first thing that they need to do is to learn that the Torah is true. For that, we made several films that we have on our channel. There's one that was made by Rav Yosef Mizrahi. It's called Torah and Science. There is a films that we made, Torah, Science, and Ancient Wisdom, Signature of God, and several other films that we made about the proof that the Torah is real. Once the person knows that the Torah is real, they have to obviously learn what the Torah says. Now they learn that Torah says not just the stories that are in it, but also the mitzvot. And everything they learn, they have to start applying to their life. They learn about Shabbat, start keeping Shabbat. How do you keep Shabbat? Learn what you're not allowed to do on Shabbat first. You're not allowed to drive on Shabbat, not allowed to watch TV on Shabbat, not allowed to cook on Shabbat, not allowed to work on Shabbat. You have to go to synagogue on Shabbat. You have to pray. You have to make a kiddush. So learn about all the things you're forbidden to do on Shabbat and the things that you need to do. And it's the same thing with other mitzvot. And ultimately, the most important part of doing tshuva is to take upon yourself to learn Torah each day. Designate a certain amount of time each day that you'll learn Torah. So if you work, let's say 9 hours a day, you have some personal matters you have to deal with for, let's say, a couple of hours. You have to sleep. Let's just say you're one of these people that sleeps 8 hours a day. That still leaves you multiple hours a day that you could study Torah. And in the beginning, it may be difficult for you to study multiple hours of Torah going from zero. But at the very least, commit, 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour a day, but on a consistent basis. And little by little, take upon yourself everything that you're learning, and of course, learn even more. Some of the main things that people learn in the beginning of their tshuva is lectures like mine, because we teach the basics and beyond, and also we answer a lot of questions that people have. So learn and do. Learn and apply. And little by little, the more you learn, the more you'll be able to do, and the more connected you are going to be to God. And that's tshuva. Why a man convert needs to do brit before the Beit Din, while a Jewish baby boy gets brit done only 8 days after his birth. That's because the Torah itself says, to Avraham Avinu, Kadosh Baruch Hu says that from now on, this covenant of Brit Milah has to be done on the 8th day of the baby's life, as long as the baby is healthy to do this Brit Milah. As long as he's healthy to do this Brit Milah, meaning he doesn't have jaundice or other types of sicknesses where the Brit Milah, the circumcision, would put his life in danger, then he has to do it on the 8th day. Now, if the baby is ill, or there's a risk of him dying as a result of the Brit Milah, then the Brit Milah is delayed. But most common is the 8th day. Now, but that's for a baby. That is the mitzvah is on the father. The father is obligated to give the Brit Milah to himself, to the baby. Now, as far as the person that usually does the Brit Milah, it's usually not the father. It's usually a moel that has done many of them. And these moalim are big tzaddikim. They don't charge any money for it. They do it as a big chesed, and they're willing to travel and do everything possible to fulfill this mitzvah. Certainly, if you have a moel do a mitzvah and he's not asking for money, that doesn't mean you shouldn't give him money, because he's not asking for it. Doesn't mean he needs it. You still should give him. You should be generous with these people, the tzaddikim. Now, it's important to have a good moel that is has a good history and has a good is somebody that's dedicated to Torah and mitzvot, and not just somebody that is like some surgeon in a medical school or a doctor. It has to be someone that is a Torah observant Jew. Now, as far as convert, a person that's an adult, because they want to convert to Judaism, they immediately have to observe all the laws. And part of the conversion for a man is to not only follow the laws that are like putting on tefillin and praying and learning Torah, but also being a Jew. Now, in order for them to be a Jew, they have to be a circumcised person. You cannot be a Jew without being a circumcised person. So that circumcision takes place, the Gemara says, it takes place first, then you let them heal. After they heal, which in today's world usually takes about a month and a half for most males to heal, then they complete the process. And it's frowned upon when a man does the circumcision and delays the secondary process. Why? Because there's several steps for the man to complete the conversion. Because these are the things we did at Mount Sinai. In order for us to be considered as Jews, we had to follow several steps. One, before we left Egypt, we had to accept upon ourselves everybody to get circumcised. Okay? This is something that if somebody didn't want to get circumcised, they didn't leave Egypt. So first step is we had to circumcise. Second thing is we have to abandon the false beliefs, whether it's idolatry, heresy, and so on, and accept upon ourselves the mitzvot. Okay? Third step is we had to go and dip in a mikveh. Dip in a mikveh. Fourth, which is not available today, is bring a sacrifice. So out of the 4 steps, today we can do 3. We can do 3, which is circumcision, the accepting the Torah and mitzvot upon ourselves and the majesty of God, and to dip in the mikveh. These are the 3 required steps. If someone misses one of them, he's not considered Jewish. Meaning, if he dips in a mikveh and he does a circumcision, but he does not accept upon himself the mitzvot, even if he doesn't accept a single mitzvah upon himself, even if he says, listen, I believe everything except this one word in the Torah, or one statement by the sages in the Gemara, or one mitzvah, I don't accept it, there's no conversion. There's no conversion. So it's not just the physical process, there's also a spiritual aspect of it. So even if he fools the Bedin, and he gets them, he does the circumcision, he dips in a mikveh, but in reality, he doesn't believe in the Torah, he doesn't really want to keep Shabbat, he has fooled the Bedin perhaps, and he may get a certificate, but in Shamayim, in heaven, he's still considered 100% non-Jew. 100% non-Jew. This is why the conversions of the Reform and the Conservative, even if they follow exactly the process of what I just said, they still not considered Jewish. Why? Because the people themselves don't accept the mitzvot, and the judges themselves don't accept the mitzvot. The judges are unfair judges. I have a short clip about this where it says the name of the clip, I think, is it was one of the questions that somebody asked years ago. I think the name of the clip. I converted conservative or reform. Am I considered Jewish? So it talks about one of the reasons why conservative or reform conversions are not considered Jewish is because the judges themselves, the dayanim themselves, are not considered what's called a fair person, a fair judge, because they themselves are heretics. So in order for a male to convert, he has to complete all parts of the mitzvah that he can do in this world, which is, like I said, it's the Brit Milah, it's accepting upon himself the Torah and the mitzvot, and it's dipping in the mikveh. Once the Mashiach comes, all converts, both male and female, are going to have to fulfill the last part that they haven't been able to fulfill in this world, which is to bring a sacrifice. All of them are going to have to bring a sacrifice at the Bet HaMikdash, and this is the reason why years ago, the time of Rabban Yochanan, there was a obligation instituted by the sages that all converts had to put a certain amount of money aside to save, to buy a korban, to buy a sacrifice, buy the animal that they're going to bring as a sacrifice to the Bet HaMikdash when Mashiach comes. But since Rabban Yochanan saw that many people were struggling with money and they were not able to really keep this money aside, and they would end up dipping into this savings, which was actually a sin, because it was supposed to be money designated for mitzvah. You're not allowed to touch money that's designated for mitzvah. It's called ekdesh. So when they did it, they sinned. So he said, this is an unnecessary sin. There's no obligation from the Torah for them to keep this money aside. So we canceled this rabbinical enactment. And now we just simply trust that Hashem is going to give the converts the money when the Mashiach comes to be able to fulfill the last part that they were not able to fulfill until the Bet HaMikdash was built. But the point being is that in order for somebody to actually convert as a male, they have to have all 3 parts. A woman, on the other hand, obviously cannot have a circumcision, but she still has to fulfill the part she can, which is dipping into the mikveh and accepting upon themselves the Torah and the mitzvot. If a woman says, listen, I'm going to convert, I like Shabbat, I like kosher food, I like the holidays, but I don't like modesty. I'm not going to be modest. Even if she lies to the Bedin. She lies to the Bedin. She lies to her friends. She lies to everybody. In reality, she's not planning on being modest. Guess what? She could dip in the mikveh 50 million times. She could drown in the mikveh for a week. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never put a Jewish neshama in her. Why? She can't lie to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning, at the moment of the conversion, when you're dipping into the mikveh, you have to be complete with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah, accepting upon yourself all of the mitzvot. Now, if a person accepts upon themselves all of the mitzvot, Hashem gives them a Jewish neshama. Now, if they fail somewhere down the road, time passes and somebody entices them to make a sin, that doesn't undo the process. Once you're Jewish, there's no taking it back. The only people that are not considered Jewish are people that were not honest with it from the first place. They were never Jewish in the first place. This actually was something that happened in history at the time of David HaMelech. There was a group of converts called the Givonim. And these Givonim, they wanted to take revenge against the family of Shaul HaMelech. And David HaMelech tried to negotiate with them, but they said, no, we don't want money. We don't want land, we don't want money, we don't want gold. What do you want? We want blood. We want Jewish blood. And even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu told David HaMelech to let them do this, not because he's trying to pacify them, but rather because it was a sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name to see certain type of justice, which we talked about in a different shiur. Perhaps one day we'll do an extensive shiur about it. But the point is, after this, David HaMelech signed and that they are not considered part of Am Yisrael, and therefore no one was allowed to marry them. No one was allowed to marry them. Why? Because one of the qualities of a Jew is to be merciful. And these people had no mercy whatsoever. He says these are fake converts. And that's ultimately what was found out, is that they didn't convert for the right reasons. They only converted because they were afraid that if they didn't convert, the army of Yeshua ben Nun was going to kill them. So they pretended to be righteous Gentiles, but in reality they were Canaanites. And that's where they came from. But ultimately they were, rid of, they got rid of them, and it was a big problems with them though, ultimately. Is the cherem made by the Vilna Gaon against the Hasidim in effect till today? Now, he didn't necessarily make a cherem against all Hasidim or anyone that follows the Hasidut. He was very much against Hasidut. Certainly there's a very big problem that is in the world today altogether. But Hasidut brought a lot of good to the world when it's the real Hasidut. When it's real Hasidut, it's beautiful, it's holy, it's extraordinary. When it's not real, then that's the problem, regardless of whether you call it Hasidut or you call it something else. And what the Gaon Mivilna was afraid of is the problem part. Ultimately, he had the fortitude, pretty much the insight that nobody else in the world had to see certain problems that would come. Okay, Loretta is taking on praying the bedtime Shema prayer regardless of the daytime prayer. Very, very good. Chazakah u'bucha, Hashem v'ayich otach, b'kol mikol kol. Bracha v'atzlacha b'kol ma'aseh yadech. Very good. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem for the answer. Thank you very much for enjoying the answer. Thank you, Kadosh Baruch Hu, for giving us the answer. What is the halacha of studying physics? Studying physics is not a problem because it does not contradict the Torah if you're studying real physics, not theoretical physics. So if you're studying physics, in fact, you'll find that some of the greatest minds in physics have been Jewish scholars. And I'm not talking about Jewish scholars in physics, rather Jewish scholars like the Rambam. Studied physics and writes about it. There's no problem of studying physics. There's no problem of studying science, as long as it's not the type of science that is looking to fight against the Torah, and which that type of science is theoretical science that is founded off of a foundation of atheism, trying to prove that there is no God of some kind, which obviously is impossible to prove. But point is that There are many people that think that the more you study science, the less you believe in God, but that's the opposite. The most accomplished scientists in history, Jew or Gentile, people like Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, were not only believed in God, but believed in the God of Israel. So the more you study the makeup of the world, the more you'll see the fingerprint of God. And in fact, I would highly recommend that you look at the film we have, The Signature of God. It has a lot of different scientific facts in it that I'm sure you'll find very interesting, and actually how it proves God's divinity and His existence. And it certainly does not contradict the Torah. Quite the opposite. Is it against the Torah to study and try to form mathematics to predict the future? Predicting the future is a waste of time. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to know something, certainly we will know it. It's not for us to predict the future. That's not your job in the world. And a person that tries to do it is simply just wasting their time. It's simply not not going to fulfill any purpose whatsoever. If we are infants when we convert, must the Brit Milah be 8 days later? No, the Brit Milah takes place before you complete your conversion. If you're a male, you have to do the Brit Milah first. Let the body part heal, the male member heal, which usually takes about a month and a half, in some cases longer, in some cases less, depends on the health of the man. And then after that, you go back to the Beit Din again, and you dip in the mikveh and accept the Ol Malchut Shamayim, accept the entire Torah. Lashon Hara has crusted my neshama, and I must resolve to cut it out from my life. Very good idea. Be'ezrat Hashem, you'll succeed in doing it. Number one thing to do in order to get rid of Lashon Hara is make it a rule in your life, in your house, that you are not going to talk about people unless it's for the sake of Torah. Meaning, you're going to say things like, oh, I heard from Rabbi this, that he said this beautiful insight about the Torah, or one of the sages said something that you're allowed to say. Use the names, and you should use the names, as the 6th chapter of Masechet Avot says, that when you say something of Torah, you must say where you heard it from. You must bring a source. So if you bring in sources, you're mentioning a name, that's a mitzvah, that's a good thing. That actually brings the Mashiach closer. Just like when Esther told Achashverosh that she got this news of these two people that wanted to kill Achashverosh from Mordechai, that source was so important that it actually ultimately, years later, brought the salvation of Am Yisrael when Achashverosh was looking at the book, and he realized that he did not reward Mordechai for saving his life, and this brought the salvation of Am Yisrael. So from there, the Mishnah teaches that when you bring a Torah idea in the name of the source that you got it, you bring the salvation closer. When you don't bring the source, it's like you are stealing the information, which actually delays the salvation, delays the Mashiach. So to mention the names of the sources is very, very important. But to talk about people like your friends or family members or other people, she did this, he did that, they went here, they bought this, that stuff, don't talk about it all. It's all Lashon Hara, it's all forbidden, and in the best case scenario, it's all a waste of time, which means that certainly you shouldn't say it. So that if you stop talking about people, you stop saying Lashon Hara. Once you stop talking about people, you stop saying Lashon Hara. So that's a great thing to do. Be'ezrat Hashem, you succeed in doing it. Let's see. Palestine is mentioned in your book. No, maybe a comic book. Palestine is mentioned in a comic book. It's mentioned in articles about terrorism very often. But in the Torah, Palestine is not mentioned even a single time. Is it a mitzvah to take the sword to the enemies of Hashem before the women of Am Yisrael? I have actually a lecture about the topic of war and how there is a mitzvah in the Torah that when we are at war, we are not allowed to have mercy, not even on women and children. Again, we're not targeting women and children, but if the woman and child pose a risk to Am Yisrael, the Torah commands us to kill them. In some cases, that risk is not necessarily always because they have a gun in their hand. Point is that there's a whole detailed lecture about it, of when we're allowed to have mercy, when we're not allowed to have mercy. Certainly, one of the attributes of Am Yisrael is mercy, and anyone that thinks otherwise simply doesn't know anything about Am Yisrael. But we're not allowed to be merciful all the time. There are times we are forbidden from being merciful. Did Levi and Shimon do the right thing? Yes and no. Meaning, yes, they did the right thing because the Shechem were all non-Jews, and thereby they were obligated under the Noahide law. And the Noahide law says that stealing, which means kidnapping, is forbidden, and also that every community must have a court system. And since they kidnapped Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, raped her and kidnapped her and did not want to return her, the obligation of the people of Shechem was to actually judge this and actually kill the perpetrator, even though he was their prince. They had to kill him. That was what the law, according to the Torah, was. Since they did not do that, they all there was a permission to kill all of them, in fact an obligation to kill all of them from the Torah. So Shimon and Levi fulfilled the Torah by destroying the people of Shechem, destroying everybody. So that's the part where they did right, according to the Torah. And the Ramban, Nachmanides discusses it as his commentary, so does Rashi, and many other Chachamim discuss this point. Now, as far as the wrong part that they did, is that Yaakov Avinu, their father, was upset with them because they did it in a dishonest way, meaning they led the Canaanites of Shechem to believe that they were going to become friends with them and they're going to marry their daughters if they would circumcise themselves. This was really a trap. It wasn't really that they were looking to become friends. They simply wanted to get these people to weaken themselves, which would make them easier to kill. And since they did not ask Yaakov Avinu for permission to go and kill them, that's what he was upset about, because the Torah says, "Midvar sheker tichak," from a thing of lies, stay away from. Not only don't say a lie, but stay away from a lie. Had they asked Yaakov Avinu from the beginning, can we go kill all of them? Yaakov Avinu would have joined them and killed them too. No problem of killing these people. Because they're enemies of God, certainly enemies of the family. They violated the Torah, they violated the law. And they had the chutzpah to even ask to marry her. So certainly they deserve death penalty. But because they pretended as if they want to make peace, and then really in reality was all a trap, that's what the Yaakov Avinu was mad about and rebuked him over. But he waited nearly 60 years or more, 70 years, before he actually rebuked him over this. Part of the reason was because after this war broke out and they destroyed everybody, all of the other Canaanite nations went and united to attack the Yaakov and his family. And there's a section in the Midrash, you could find it extensive and very, very clear details of what happened in Me'am Loez. Brings many different sources, but he writes, Rabbi Yaakov Kuli, alav Shalom, lived 300 years ago and would fast from week to week. He wrote a very, very clear narrative of exactly what happened with precise numbers and measurements and days and so on. It's unbelievable how much information we have about it, because it happened 4,000 years ago. But anyway, there's a section called the Wars of the 12 Tribes. And the Yaakov and his sons, with the exception of Yosef and Benjamin, Yosef because he was already in Egypt, and Benjamin because he was too young, at least in the beginning. I think he actually may have joined the war in some case, in fact, because, I think he did join the war at some point. But anyway, there was wars. There was wars with the Canaanites against the 12 tribes, and it's very, very extraordinary details over there. You see where all of the stories that people spend their time and billions of dollars reading and watching about comic books, all of it came from the Torah. All of it came from the Torah. You'll actually, once you read it, you'll see different superpowers that the tribes had that have now become, best-selling comic books for the last 100 years. Do you think that peace with the Arab people is possible or no chance? It depends how you define peace. If you mean peace, like forever peace, no, that's not possible. There is a certain prophecies that are just a reality. They're a fact that will have happened, will happen, and one of them is that Ishmael's descendants will torment the Jewish people at the end of days. This was also given as a prophecy to Nebuchadnezzar, which Daniel interpreted in the dream, the famous dream of Nebuchadnezzar. And Ishmael is actually going to cause a lot of trouble for the Jewish people at the end of days, which we're obviously seeing right now, but we're only seeing a tidbit of it. So ultimately, peace with the descendants of Ishmael is not possible. Temporary peace is having peace and quiet and somewhat no war, or at least no abrupt war. Periods of that, a few months here, even a few years here and there, sure. Some of them, yes. Some of them, absolutely no. It depends on their ideology. For the most part, most of the people that follow Islam are enemies of Am Yisrael to the highest extent, because that's what the Quran teaches. The Quran, the more religious a Muslim is, the more he is taught to be anti-Semitic, because that is what's taught in the Quran itself. The Quran says that their salvation of the Muslims will come when the Jews are destroyed from the face of the earth. And it says that the Jew will be hiding behind a tree and behind a rock, and the rock is going to start speaking, telling the Muslim, "Hey, Muslim, come! There's a Yehud over here. Come kill him." And that's in essence their salvation is to destroy the Jewish people. And the only reason why there was periods of time where we were able to live in harmony to a certain extent is not because there was true harmony between the people across the world, but rather there was certain interests that were made, and also there was certain benefits that the Muslims were getting. They were taxing us, they were afraid of us in some cases, but the pogroms and the murders and the different massacres from the Arabs have happened countless times throughout history. What happened on October 7th is not a new thing. It has happened many times throughout history, including in the early 1900s. In 1927, there was a big massacre. In the earlier part of the decade, it happened. It happened throughout history in Morocco, in Yemen, and all over. Pretty much name it, there was constant massacres. If anyone looks at the history, the real history between the Jews and the Arabs, it hasn't been a pretty one. What people like to mention is like, oh, look, they lived in harmony. I don't know. It depends what you call harmony. If you call harmony that they are, kidnapping and raping our daughters, harmony, we don't exactly consider that harmony. In fact, in the Quran itself, Muhammad murders a bunch of Jews. It's not a new thing. Murdering Jews is part of their religion. So when somebody's ideology is to destroy you, peace is not possible so long as they follow that ideology, so long as they believe in that. Now you're going to say, how come there are some Muslims that are actually nice to Jews? Just because they're nice to Jews doesn't necessarily mean they like Jews, but even if they do like Jews, even if they are saying Jews are good and Israel is good and I'm a fan of them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're religious. You say, yo, no, but this guy is a sheikh. This guy is he's a follower of Islam. He's follower of part of it. Why? Because again, like I said, their own books say otherwise. Their own books say otherwise. So if anyone wants to learn extensively about this particular topic, the world-renowned expert about both Islam and this whole Middle East debacle that's not going away anytime soon, there's an expert called Dr. Kedar. Dr. Kedar is a scholar not just in Judaism, but in Islam and Middle East matters better than anybody else. He has literally destroyed them in debates on public television and their channels multiple times. They're scared of him. There's nobody in the world that could stand next to him. He's extensive knowledge. So I learned a little bit from him as well. Some of his lectures and talks and so on, but over the years as well in other places. Point is that their ideology is dependent on destroying Israel. That's their ideology. They're not looking for peace. They're not even looking for land. It has nothing to do with land. People think it has to do with land. Oh no, it has nothing to do with land. Why? Because the proof of that is simply before 1948, before modern state of Israel was in essence permitted to exist. Let's just say that. Okay? First of all, there were still Jews in Israel well before 1948. Many Jews. 1948 it wasn't like 1947. There was no Jews. 1948, all the Jews came there. There were many Jews in Israel at all times. There was many more right before that time during the 40 years preceding 1948. There was many Jews that immigrated to the land of Israel. But there were Jews there at all times. The point is that the vast majority of Jews, though, were in Europe and in the Middle Eastern countries like Yemen, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco, Egypt. There were many Jews over there. So there was no land of Israel, in essence, under the control of Israel for nearly 2,000 years. So since there was no land that was under our control, you would think that there would be peace and harmony between the Jews and the Arabs, right? But there wasn't. They massacred us, they murdered us, they raped us, they tortured us, they tormented us, they stole our money countless times, stole our possessions. The history is not a pretty history. Anyone that denies it is simply either stupid, blind, intentionally, or unintentionally, and therefore he should be instituted because they're a danger to themselves and society. If they're intentionally doing it, that's just simply because they have obviously evil agenda. But the point is that even before the land, there was massacres and pogroms and horrible things that were happening. Many stories discussing it. One of these evil descendants of Ishmael, this guy named Hijab, Yimach Shemo V'zichro, Hijab Muhammad, I think his name is, may Kadosh Baruch Hu uproot him from the world in a strange way and sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name to show him that this is only because he's an enemy of Am Yisrael. That's why he's uprooting him. Anyway, this Hijab had some type of video with his fellow terrorist, so-called scholar, who said, look, even their Jewish sages say that there's peace and harmony between the Jews. You know who said it? They say the Rambam said it, who's also named Maimonides, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. He said it. Look, he writes great things about the Muslims. Only ignorant Jews and ignorant non-Jews would ever believe such a statement. Why? Anyone that knows even a little bit about the Rambam, a little bit about the Rambam, knows that he said the exact opposite about the descendants of Ishmael. He cursed them. He said that they're a cursed people. They tormented us. They tortured us. They nearly murdered the Rambam himself and his family multiple times. He had to flee from them. There's a whole letter that he wrote to the Jews of Yemen that were being tortured and forced to convert to Islam. There's a famous letter that you can find online. And in so many words, there was no greater enemy to Islam than the Rambam. But since these liars, Muhammad Hijab and the rest of his terrorist friends, they know that people are not going to fact check them. They say whatever they want. They say whatever they want. And since people are already looking for an excuse to hate Jews anyway, sure, look, the rabbis even like them. It's just these Zionists, just these apartheid people. But that's the problem. Anytime you see these people face scholars, immediately they get aggressive. Immediately they attack with things that are not related whatsoever to the actual issue at hand. They start threatening physically. They start acting literally like the beasts that they are. But if they're dealing with ignorant people, they'll speak smoothly, nicely. They'll bring all types of information. Why? Because they're assuming correctly that the masses are not going to fact check them. They're simply going to take their word at face value. And unfortunately, they're succeeding at it. So this is a reality. So conclusion is, short-term times of peace between Am Yisrael and the descendants of Ishmael, short-term, certainly possible with different parts of them. Not all of them. As far as long-term peace, absolutely not. It cannot be with all of them, and even the majority of them, it's impossible. But some sections of them will actually end up being righteous Noahides ultimately and will go to heaven, based on their belief in the Torah, not belief in the Quran. And there'll be some other people that will say that their fathers lied to them, and they'll abandon their ways and abandon all of the beliefs and actually follow the Torah. But that's details for another day. Let's see. What is a wizard in the Torah? A wizard is considered machshefa. Machshefa lo techaye. There's a rule in the Torah, a wizard is not allowed to live. You have to kill him. It's a form of idolatry. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says machshefa lo techaye. That's a person that uses different types of witchcraft in order to manipulate reality. And witchcraft comes from the powers of evil, kochot tuma, powers of impurity. It's not allowed for anybody to deal with that stuff. Why is Rabbi Asher Meza against Kabbalah? First of all, Rabbi Asher Meza is not a rabbi. He's an apikos. He's a heretic. Second of all, he's against everything, not just Kabbalah. He's against everything. He's against Judaism. He's against the sages. He's against the Torah itself. He's against commentary. He's against everything. He's created his own religion. He's an apikos. He's a heretic. And he has no share of the world to come. And he knows that I'm saying this about him because he's probably the one that sent you to say it, but he just wanted to get a new clip of me saying that he's an apikos. So here you go, Asher. You got it. Go make yourself a video. Because his most famous videos, by the way, on his channel are videos of me. So you want to make me more famous? Bechavud. Many of you students have already followed and came to the truth already. So he's talking about that in the live. He's a apikos. He doesn't believe in Judaism. He's one of the heretics of the generation. We've spoken about him multiple times in the past. We made several videos about him. You could just simply go to my channel, type in Asher Meza, and you'll see all types of proofs that Asher Meza is considered a heretic according to all Torah opinions, without an exception. He didn't send you? Okay, send him. Usually he sends people. If he didn't send you, then I highly recommend that you go and listen to the videos that I've made and then make a decision for yourself of whether he's a heretic that you shouldn't listen to, or you want to continue going down that rabbit hole and follow him in his heresy. No one accepts him in any place. No big rabbi has ever supported him. No big rabbi will ever support him. In fact, he is banned in many communities. And nobody accepts his converts, people that he does mass conversions like the Christians. He takes a bunch of ignorant people to the beach, and he tells them to dip, and he gives them a little piece of paper to convert. But those people go and try to live Jewish lives. Some of them try to make aliyah. Nobody accepts those papers, literally not even as toilet paper. And he causes a lot of problems to the Jewish people. But unfortunately, the most that we could do, we've already done. There's not much else that can be done to stop him from his stupidity. But Baruch Hashem, we've done enough that at least it slowed down his operations. Baruch Hashem. As far as killed, we don't have the permission to kill anybody for making sins in the Torah. That was only at the time of the Sanhedrin. Today, anyone that violates the Torah, that let's say for example, like desecrating Shabbat intentionally, or committing adultery, or idol worship, or anything like that, there is a heavenly death penalty on them, meaning that God will punish them at some point or another with something that's the equivalent of a death penalty, whether it's them dying at a young age, or their children dying during their lifetime, or other types of horrible, horrific punishments that they've acquired for themselves. But we do not have any permission to kill anybody today, because we don't have a Sanhedrin. You just said that a wizard should be killed. Yes, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says that a wizard is not allowed to live. This does not mean that I or you or any other rabbi or Jew out there can just go and kill them. You're not allowed to kill them. The point is that at the time of the Sanhedrin, they would get a death penalty. Today, you can't do anything. Quite frankly, there's not the type of wizards today or people that deal with witchcraft like there was in the past. But even the ones that that do it today, that delve into it today, still would get a death penalty at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, at the time of the Sanhedrin. Today, their death penalty will come from God, whenever God decides to do it. But as far as for us to kill anybody, we don't have permission to do it. But there's still a verse in the Torah that says that they deserve a death penalty. יש שיעורים בעברית, כבוד הרב? כן. יש לי תחנה בעברית, תלך ליוטיוב, הרב ירון ראובן, יש שם ברוך השם מלא שיעורים בעברית, שכבודו יכול ליהנות מהם. יש גם את השיעורים שלי, גם בתחנה של הרב שלי, הרב אפרים כחלון. 20 שיעורים האחרונים שהוא עשה, אני גם חלק מהשיעור, אתה יכול לשמוע גם שמה, וגם ברוך השם, יש את השיעורים המרתקים ומדהימים של הרב אפרים כחלון, שזה רבנו ומורנו, עטרת ראשנו. אז תלך ליוטיוב, הרב אפרים כחלון, ושם יש ברוך השם לפחות איזה 5,000 שיעורים, ברוך השם. That's a perfect answer, Baruch Hashem. Thank you very much. Baruch Hashem. It's all Hashem. I'm just simply a small, tiny little messenger that's trying to sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. All credit, all honor, all goes to Hashem. Nothing to me. if I could somehow do this without and successfully, without you guys even knowing that I exist, that would even be ideal. But since this is the nature of the world and what Hashem allows us to do, then we do it. But all honor should go to Hashem. Let's see. Kabbalot, guys. Kabbalot. Who's taking on more mitzvot? Rabbi, what tribe are you from? Well, we know of 4 different tribes that are in the world today. We have the Levi, which is the Kohanim, which is the Levi tribe. There's Yehuda. There's Dan. Some say there's also Menashe. And some of the Chachamim say that Sephardic Jews are from the tribe of Yehuda. So I would assume my tribe is Yehuda. But we're not going to know that for sure until the Mashiach comes and he identifies all 12 tribes. Which would mean that there are tribes in the world that we don't even know that they're part of us. There's Gemara says there's part of Am Yisrael is hiding behind the mountains, meaning they're not part of society today. And they're going to come and join us at the war of Gog and Magog. I've told you guys one day I'll do a shiur about it. It's a very, very interesting topic. How do I cut off my left side? How do I shift the responsibility of performing daily prayers and psalms? How can I overcome the temptations to procrastinate? Always saying that I'll do it later. It's not an easy battle to overcome animalistic side. Any advice truly challenging? Can you offer guidance? Okay, so as far as laziness, we already discussed that. In regards to temptations, the person needs to know that you are only going to succeed in serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu if you make him the priority in your life. If you make fulfilling your temptations the priority in your life, like most people, then the difference between you and a beast is very little. The only difference is simply that you can speak a certain language and they speak a different language. They speak animal. Point is that a person needs to know that they're not supposed to act like an animal. Now, how do you not act like an animal? Don't fulfill every one of your temptations. Even the permissible temptations, don't fulfill them exactly when you want them. For example, eating. Don't eat just because you feel like eating. Eat because you're hungry. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Immorality. Don't look at every woman that passes by you. If she's not your wife, she's not permitted for you to look at. Don't look at her. It's hard? Yes, it's hard. But you have to train yourself and it'll eventually become easy. The point is that a person needs to learn how to control their desires. Control every one of their desires. The more they control their desires, the more they're becoming a vessel to serve Hashem. Now, if they're controlling their desires simply because they want to become stronger physically or they want to be more fit, then that's not necessarily going to make them a better person. Maybe make them more fit, but it's not going to make them a better person. So ultimately, the reason to do everything is because this is part of your servitude of Hashem. So if you make everything as part of your servitude of Hashem, and you connect everything to Hashem, then that little by little is going to make you a better person, even if you don't succeed as much as you would want to succeed. And the more you spend time learning Musar and Torah, the more you will actually have the tools to do all of this. Second thing I would say is to watch the playlist that I have on my YouTube channel called Tikkun Abrit. Tikkun Abrit, Kedusha. This is a list of somewhere around 100 and 150 different videos, both short ones and long ones, to talk about the desire of immorality, lust, and how to overcome it, how dangerous it is, how destructive it is. Watch all of those lectures on a regular basis. In addition to other Torah and Musar that you learn, those lectures on that playlist should be constantly something that you hear every day. In the beginning, a lot of it, later on, a little less, later on, a little less, but on a regular basis. Why? Because unless you're constantly reminded that immorality is a danger to your existence, unless you constantly hear this, unless you constantly know this, ultimately you'll fail. Even if you mean good, you'll ultimately fail. So have this on your playlist, and B'ezrat Hashem you'll succeed. Taking on everything that I learned, and learned from converting to not reading for 3 years, I've almost forgot everything, but knowing the Torah is life. Chazak u'Baruch, B'ezrat Hashem you succeed in all the good things that you're looking to do, B'ezrat Hashem, to keep learning, ultimately succeeding in your conversion, and B'ezrat Hashem, build the Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. Are we justified by faith like Father Avraham? I honestly don't know what that means. Justified by faith. If you follow the Torah, you're doing the right thing. You're following the name of God. You're following the instructions of God. If you're just thinking that just having positive beliefs in certain things makes it just, those positive beliefs may be antithetical to the Torah. So it depends what the beliefs are. All right, well, we're going to finish up now. See if there's maybe one or two other questions before we're done. My great-grandfather was a Sephardic Jew. What is a Sephardic Jew? Sephardic Jew, originally it's coin named after the Rambam, because he was from Spain, but he spent a lot of time in Egypt and in other countries, even in Morocco. But the Sephardic follows the traditions of the Sephardic Jews, but that's named after the Rambam. But people that call themselves Sephardic Jews are not necessarily from Spain. The vast majority of them today are from the Middle Eastern countries that I mentioned before, like Morocco, Libya, Egypt, Iran, which is Persia, Iraq, Afghanistan, these countries. That's where many of the Sephardic Jews in the world come from. And of course, some of them came from Spain, but in comparison, the majority came from the Middle East. So many times people call Sephardic Jews also Mizrahi Jews, Yadut Mizrach. But that's just following the customs of the Sephardic sages. There is, in contrary to that, there is the Ashkenazi Jews that were from Europe, different countries in Europe that had the same Torah but different customs. So the Jews of Ukraine, Poland, Russia, these countries, Germany. These Jews had different customs. So in the Shulchan Aruch, for example, you'll have Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote the Shulchan Aruch. Rabbi Yosef Karo, he was a Sephardic Jew. But there was also the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis. He was one of the Gdolei Hador, was very young, still in his 30s, was extraordinarily wealthy, both in Torah and money. And he died actually very young. He's a big tzaddik. Certainly he completed his tikkun. And he was actually working on the same thing as Rabbi Yosef Karo, to put all of the halachas, all of the laws of the Jewish people in a structured format. But since he saw that Rabbi Yosef Karo completed it before him, instead of writing a book that would compete with it, all he did is he took the Shulchan Aruch. This is 500 years ago. And he just, anywhere that there was a different custom a different tradition according to the Ashkenazi sages, he just added it to it. So today, what you have, anytime you buy Shulchan Aruch, is you have both the Shulchan Aruch, the Rabbi Yosef Karo version, and then right next to it, you'll have the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, meaning that all Shulchan Aruch has both of these main traditions of the Jewish people. And that's what all of Am Yisrael follows. All of Am Yisrael, I mean all of the religious Jews. People that do not follow the Shulchan Aruch are not following Judaism, unfortunately. It's a sad reality, and that's the point of all of these lectures, is to encourage all of you to take on more of the Torah into your life, make it a priority in order to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless you with bracha, atzlacha, Chaim Arukim, Shlemim, Meleim Torah, Mitzvot, B'Gemilut Chasadim. Thank you very much for learning with me. It's now about 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to get a little rest before starting off the day with praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and serving Him even more. But thank you again for learning with me. Tomorrow night, for any of you that are in Israel and you want to see a in-person live shiur, tomorrow night we're having a shiur here in Givat Shaul at 8:30 at our Kollel. For anyone that wants the information, just look at my YouTube page and also my Facebook and WhatsApp and all the other stuff that we have for our organization. There's a poster over there with the address, and both men and women are welcome to come, learn, and Be'ezrat Hashem, get a blessing if they want at the end of the shiur. Bracha v'atzlacha. Thank you again for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you. And don't forget to share this with your friends, family, and simply anyone that still has ears working. Bracha v'atzlacha.
אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא בישועות ליבם לטובה ולברכה, שבכל מה שיפנו ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, הודיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.